You've felt it, haven't you? That moment when you're genuinely excited about an idea, maybe discussing the philosophical implications of quantum mechanics, or analyzing the economic factors behind historical events, and you watch her eyes glaze over. Not because she's stupid, but because something deeper is happening. Something you've been told isn't real. Something society pretends doesn't exist. Your intelligence is actively working against you in the dating market. There's a ceiling to how smart you can be before it becomes romantically toxic. Research from 2018 published in the journal Intelligence found that cognitive ability peaks in attractiveness at exactly the 90th percentile, an IQ of approximately 120. Beyond that threshold, each additional point of intelligence actually decreases your romantic appeal. You're not imagining the difficulty. You're experiencing a documented phenomenon that challenges everything our culture claims about valuing intelligence. But there's something even more disturbing beneath this surface pattern, something that connects to the deepest philosophical questions about authentic love and human connection. The 19th century existentialist Søren Kierkegaard understood something about intelligent men and relationships that modern psychology is only beginning to rediscover. The very qualities that make you intellectually superior also make you existentially isolated. And until you understand why, you'll remain trapped in a cycle of romantic frustration that has nothing to do with your worth as a person, and everything to do with how our culture has systematically weaponized your greatest strength against you. This isn't another self-help video telling you to dumb yourself down. This is the forbidden knowledge about intelligence, relationships, and the cultural conspiracy that's been hiding in plain sight. What you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you understand your romantic struggles, and more importantly, how you can transcend them without sacrificing who you are. When Dr. Gina Gignac and her colleagues at the University of Western Australia set out to study sapiosexuality, attraction to intelligence, they uncovered something that should have made headlines worldwide. Only 8.1% of people are genuinely attracted to very high intelligence. The other 91.9% find exceptional intelligence either neutral or actively off-putting in romantic contexts. Think about what this means for your dating life. If you're scoring above the 90th percentile intellectually, and if you're watching this video, you probably are, you've eliminated over 90% of potential partners simply by being who you are. But it gets worse. The study found that people worry about 3 specific things when confronted with exceptionally intelligent partners: compatibility concerns, social awkwardness stereotypes, and relationship power imbalances. You're not paranoid when you sense that displaying your intellectual capabilities creates distance rather than attraction. You're detecting a real psychological phenomenon. When you explain complex concepts with genuine enthusiasm, when you make connections others miss, when you ask questions that cut straight to the heart of issues, you're triggering an unconscious intimidation response that operates completely outside of rational thought. Here's what's really happening in her mind. She's not thinking this guy is too smart for me in any conscious way. Instead, her brain is processing your intelligence as a status threat, automatically calculating that a relationship with you would place her in a subordinate position. This isn't her fault. It's an evolutionary response to perceived power differentials that intelligence creates. But the Columbia University speed dating studies revealed something even more devastating. Men who displayed high intelligence were less likely to receive second date requests even when women had initially expressed interest. The researchers discovered that intelligence creates what they called psychological distance, the same cognitive mechanism that makes people appreciate art in museums while feeling threatened by artists at parties. You've probably experienced this personally. You meet someone online or through friends, there's initial interest, maybe even excitement about your conversations. Then you meet in person. You're being your authentic self, intellectually curious, analytically sharp, genuinely engaged with ideas, and you watch something shift in her demeanor. The warmth cools. The follow-up texts become shorter and less frequent. Eventually, she needs to focus on herself right now, or doesn't feel a romantic connection. You're not failing at dating. The dating game is rigged against you. Søren Kierkegaard never married. This wasn't because he couldn't find love. He was deeply in love with Regine Olsen, and she returned his feelings. Instead, he made the agonizing decision to break their engagement after recognizing something profound about the relationship between intelligence, authenticity, and romantic connection. Kierkegaard understood that highly intelligent, introspective men face an existential double-bind in relationships that remains unresolved to this day. In his concept of the single one, or den Enkelte, Kierkegaard described the burden of authentic individuality, becoming who you truly are rather than conforming to social expectations. But here's the cruel paradox he identified. The more authentic you become as an intelligent person, the more isolated you become in a culture that demands conformity. Your genuine self, the questioning mind, the analytical nature, the intellectual curiosity, becomes precisely what distances you from others who haven't done the difficult work of self-examination. Kierkegaard wrote about anxiety as the dizziness of freedom, that overwhelming sensation when you stand at the edge of choice, simultaneously attracted to and repelled by your possibilities. This perfectly describes the modern intelligent man's dating experience. You have the freedom to choose any conversational direction, to explore any intellectual territory, to make connections others miss. But that very freedom creates anxiety in potential partners who feel lost trying to follow your mental movements. Consider Kierkegaard's 3 stages of existence and how they apply to your romantic life. The aesthetic stage is where most dating culture operates, focused on immediate pleasure, novelty, avoiding boredom. This is Tinder hookup culture, the constant pursuit of new experiences. You've probably tried to operate here, but it feels hollow and unsustainable. Your intelligence craves deeper meaning than swiping and surface-level interactions can provide. The ethical stage involves commitment, responsibility, choosing values over impulses. You've likely reached this stage. You want genuine connection, committed relationships, building something meaningful with another person. But here's where you get trapped. The ethical stage requires finding someone who shares your values, including the value of depth over surface, substance over style. And as the research shows, that's less than 10% of the population. The religious stage, which Kierkegaard meant existentially, not necessarily literally, involves accepting the fundamental absurdity of existence while choosing to commit anyway. This is where relationship transcendence happens, loving someone not because it makes rational sense, but because you choose to create meaning through the act of loving itself. Most people never reach the religious stage. They remain trapped in aesthetic pleasure-seeking or ethical rule-following. But your intelligence has likely pushed you toward this deeper understanding of what authentic love requires, making you incompatible with partners operating at more superficial levels. This is why conventional dating advice fails you completely. Be yourself. Sounds great until being yourself means discussing philosophy while others want to discuss reality TV. Find someone who shares your interests becomes impossible when your interests are complex and specialized. You need different strategies because you're operating at a different existential level than most people. What you've been experiencing personally is actually part of a systematic cultural pattern that has been documented by historians and sociologists. There has been a deliberate, ongoing campaign to feminize and sexually marginalize intellectual men in American culture for over 300 years. This started with colonial America, which was built largely by people fleeing the educated European upper classes. The practical demands of frontier life meant that academic education was seen as impractical, and the bookish scholar was deemed an unprofitable occupation. The cultural foundation was established. Intellectual men are un-American and unmasculine. The historian Richard Hofstadter documented how this anti-intellectual sentiment became embedded in American masculinity. The ideal became the self-made man whose knowledge derived from life experience, not an intellectual man whose knowledge of the real world was derived from books. Your intellectual gifts weren't just undervalued, they were actively coded as unmanly. But the real damage happened between 1945 and 1989 with the creation and popularization of the nerd stereotype. University of Maryland research reveals this wasn't accidental. It was a systematic cultural mechanism designed to marginalize intellectual masculinity through 2 key dynamics. The heteronormative dynamic, using gender stereotypes to portray intelligence as sexually unattractive and socially awkward. The exclusionary dynamic, positioning intellectual achievement as something that disqualifies you from normal social and romantic participation. Think about every movie, TV show, and cultural narrative you've consumed. Intelligent men are consistently portrayed as sexually unsuccessful, emotionally stunted, physically weak, and deserving of mockery. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where displaying intelligence triggers social rejection, which then proves the stereotype. Meanwhile, traditional masculinity emphasizes exactly the opposite of your strengths: physical dominance over intellectual mastery, emotional suppression over thoughtful analysis, sexual conquest over deep connection, and common sense over complex understanding. You've been systematically excluded from the cultural definition of masculine attractiveness. Modern dating culture has amplified this discrimination through technology. Dating apps prioritize instant visual assessment over personality depth, hookup culture over relationship building, surface traits over substance. The entire system is designed to filter out your strengths before they can be appreciated. Here's the conspiracy part. This isn't accidental. Corporate media benefits from promoting anti-intellectual sentiment because thoughtful, analytical people are harder to manipulate with advertising and propaganda. Romantically marginalizing intelligent men serves the broader goal of discouraging intellectual development in the general population. You're not struggling with women. You're struggling with a rigged cultural system that has taught women and everyone else to devalue exactly the qualities that would make you an exceptional long-term partner. The problem isn't you. The problem is living in a culture that systematically teaches people to fear and avoid intelligence. When you demonstrate superior intelligence, you trigger what psychologists call a status threat response. Her brain automatically calculates that intellectual superiority equals social dominance, placing her in a potentially subordinate position. This happens in milliseconds before conscious thought. Dr. Carla Marie Manley explains that our strongest feelings of intimidation often correspond to our own insecurities. Your intellectual capacity magnifies any doubts she has about her own intelligence exponentially. Research reveals that while 87% of men say they date women more intelligent than themselves, when actually confronted with such women, they physically move their chairs further away and report decreased attraction. The same happens when women encounter men with significantly higher intelligence. This triggers three compensatory behaviors: competitive one-upmanship, trying to demonstrate intelligence through arguments or corrections; emotional manipulation, using emotional reactions to regain power balance; withdrawal and avoidance, simply disengaging rather than feeling consistently less than. The cruel paradox: the more authentic you are, sharing real interests, asking genuine questions, the more you demonstrate the cognitive gap that makes her uncomfortable. Columbia University's speed dating research identified psychological distance effects. People appreciate intelligence abstractly, but feel threatened when confronted with it face-to-face. If you're above the 90th percentile intellectually, IQ 120+, you've eliminated 90% of potential partners just by being yourself. Women value intelligence, but show stronger negative reactions to men who significantly outperform them cognitively. The sweet spot is optimal rather than maximum intelligence. Only 8.1% of people identify as sapiosexuals. Factor in age compatibility, location, availability, and attraction, you're looking at less than 1% of women being genuinely compatible. But here's the liberation. You don't need broad appeal. You need deep compatibility with select few. Assortative mating research shows IQ correlations of 0.30, 0.40 between partners, much higher than for personality traits. Highly intelligent people do find each other, but it requires seeking environments where intelligence is valued. Professional conferences, graduate programs, philosophy groups, places where cognitive engagement is normalized. There's a specific loneliness in high intelligence that nobody discusses openly. Kierkegaard described it as the isolation of the single one, the person who's become authentic while others remain conformist. Your intelligence isn't just cognitive capacity, it's seeing patterns others miss, questioning assumptions others accept. Most conversations feel superficial not from arrogance, but because you operate at different analytical depth. Your insights are unwelcome not because they're wrong, but because they disrupt comfortable illusions. Mensa studies reveal highly intelligent people show higher insecure attachment and greater conflict avoidance with fear of emotional intimacy. This isn't weakness, it's the predictable result of being repeatedly misunderstood for your natural thinking. You've learned to hide aspects of your intelligence, creating internal conflict between your authentic and social selves. The cost: developing relationships with people who don't really know you. The real issue isn't emotional incompetence, it's the mismatch between your cognitive complexity and most partners' emotional sophistication. Your emotional intelligence challenges aren't deficits, they're developmental tasks specific to highly intelligent people. Process emotions at the same complexity level as ideas. Communicate insights without overwhelming less analytical partners. Apply pattern recognition to relationship dynamics. Use problem-solving skills emotionally without making your partner feel like a problem. The solution isn't developing emotional intelligence to fit with incompatible partners. It's developing it to better identify and connect with compatible partners who appreciate rather than feel threatened by psychological sophistication. Kierkegaard believed authentic existence requires conscious choices rather than drifting into expected patterns. Instead of becoming more appealing to the general market, courageously seek authentic connection with compatible people, even if this means longer periods alone. Consider Kierkegaard's 3 approaches to relationships. Aesthetic: seeking the perfect intellectual match, leads to endless searching. Ethical: committing based on values and responsibilities, works better but becomes rigid. Religious: accepting fundamental uncertainty while choosing to love authentically anyway. The religious approach means loving someone not because they meet all standards, but because you choose to create meaning through loving them without settling for incompatibility. Professional environments offer best opportunities where intelligence is normalized. Look for intellectual curiosity rather than just credentials. Compatible partners will lean in when you discuss ideas. Ask questions that make you think differently. Share books and ideas unprompted. Enjoy your analytical nature rather than tolerate it. Avoid those who consistently change subjects from complex topics, joke about overthinking, or describe intelligence as intimidating. Your romantic struggles aren't a bug, they're a feature. The difficulty finding compatible partners has protected you from settling for relationships that would never satisfy you. Someone threatened by your intelligence could never love the real you fully. The transformation happens when you stop seeing intelligence as something to manage and start seeing it as your most valuable tool for creating authentic connection. The right woman will be grateful for your depth, not threatened. She'll appreciate your ability to see clearly, even when clarity is uncomfortable. When you find this person, everything learned through struggle becomes an asset. You'll finally relax into being fully yourself with someone who celebrates your intellectual nature. The exhaustion of constantly translating yourself down ends. This is Kierkegaard's authentic love. 2 people who've become fully themselves, choosing to create meaning through conscious decision to love completely. Your intelligence isn't a barrier. It's what makes you capable of recognizing and creating this when opportunity arises. The game was never rigged against you personally. It was designed by and for people operating at different levels of complexity than you naturally operate at. Once you understand this, you can stop playing by rules that don't serve you and start creating the kind of relationship that honors who you really are. Your intelligence is not something to overcome. It's something to offer to the right person, who will receive it as the extraordinary gift it actually is. Now it's time for confessions. Have you ever hidden your intelligence on a date? Comment, "I masked," or "never," plus what happened.